remember the whispers. They began as murmurs in the market, rising like smoke from a fire I did not start. "That's her," they'd say. "The madwoman from Magdala. The one the demons danced through." They were right, though they could never understand the storm inside me. I was Mary, daughter of a fisherman by the Sea of Galilee, once joyful, once pure. But then came the shadows, the 7 voices that clawed at my soul. They spoke in tongues of torment, turning my laughter into screams. I would wake in the night and find myself clawing the walls. My own hands bruised me, my own thoughts hunted me. I could hear my mother crying in the dark, afraid of her own daughter. The men avoided me. The children scattered like startled doves. I became the woman no one would touch. One morning, as the sun rose golden over the waters, I wandered to the outskirts of town, drawn by a crowd. A man was there, simple in robe, gentle in face, yet the air around him carried something alive. People pressed near to hear his words. And then his eyes found mine. He didn't flinch. He didn't look away. He said only, "Mary." The sound of my name from his lips broke something in me, like light cracking through stone. I fell to the ground, trembling as the voices screamed in fury. And then, silence. The silence was the first sound of peace I had ever known. When I looked up again, I saw his face, calm, compassionate, knowing. The people around were whispering again, but this time not in scorn. "She's free," someone said. And from that day, I followed him. After that day, the world looked new, every sound sharper, every color alive. I followed him with the others, Joanna, Susanna, and the men he called his disciples. We walked dusty roads, slept under the stars, shared bread and laughter. He spoke of a kingdom not built with hands. A kingdom of mercy, of love stronger than law, of hearts made whole. Sometimes, I'd catch him looking at the broken, the unworthy, and I'd see myself in them, the woman he rescued from darkness. I served him gladly, washing clothes, preparing food, helping the sick. But it wasn't the tasks that mattered, it was his presence. Everywhere he went, the air felt charged, as if heaven had drawn nearer to earth. The blind saw. The lepers danced. The poor lifted their heads. Once, we passed through a village where they spat at him. Stones flew. But he only said, "Forgive them." And in that moment, I knew, I wanted to carry his forgiveness the rest of my life. He called me Mary of Magdala. But in his voice, it didn't sound like shame anymore. It sounded like destiny. We stopped in Bethany one evening, at the home of Martha and her brother Lazarus. I remember the scent of roasted lamb and olive oil. People crowded the small room to hear him teach. I sat at his feet, listening to every word. He spoke of love that forgives 70 times 7. Of treasures not of gold but of grace. Of a shepherd who leaves 99 for the one that's lost. And I wept, because I was that one. I poured out the jar of perfume I had saved from my former life, my only treasure. The fragrance filled the room. Some frowned, saying it was waste. But he said, "Leave her alone. She has done a beautiful thing for me." Those words burned into my heart. Beautiful. He called me beautiful. Not for my face, but for my devotion. I decided then, I would never leave his side. Not while I lived. The days that followed were filled with wonders. I had seen darkness bow to light in my own life, but watching him touch others, watching hope awaken in strangers' eyes, was like seeing heaven breathe. We were by the Sea of Galilee again. The air smelled of salt and morning fish. He had been teaching the crowds from Peter's boat. When he told Peter to cast the net again, though they had caught nothing all night, Peter obeyed, and the water erupted with silver. The men shouted. The net strained with the weight of fish. I laughed until tears ran down my cheeks. Even the sea obeyed him. Later, he healed a crippled man who had been carried through the crowd. He said, "Rise, take up your bed, and walk." And the man did. The joy that filled that place was like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. I remember watching him walk along the shore after, his robe catching the breeze. People followed, calling his name. Yet his eyes were often lifted toward heaven, as though he heard music the rest of us could not. I wondered what it would feel like to hear what he heard. It was in Capernaum that I saw her, the woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. She pushed through the crowd, weak and pale, whispering, "If I can just touch his garment." I was walking beside him that day. The press of people was heavy, the sun harsh. But suddenly he stopped. His eyes turned, alert, gentle. "Who touched me?" he asked. The disciples looked confused. Everyone was touching him. But I knew that look, that stillness when heaven had moved. She fell before him trembling, confessing what she had done. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you whole." She wept into his robe. I wept too. Because I saw myself in her, the same desperation, the same faith, the same miracle. Every time he healed, it was as if he healed a part of me again. That evening, I helped bandage the sick and serve food to the travelers. My heart was full. I knew the world would never be the same after him. There came a night I will never forget. We had crossed the sea by boat. The air smelled of rain and the waves grew wild. The men rowed hard, fear tightening their faces, remember clutching the side, praying silently. Suddenly lightning split the sky, and there he was, walking on the water. At first, we thought it was a spirit. But then his voice came through the storm, calm and commanding. "Do not be afraid. It is I." Peter stepped out, trembling, his feet meeting the water as though it were stone. But when the wind rose, he began to sink. I cried out with the others, yet Jesus caught him. The moment his hand touched Peter, the storm began to die. When he entered the boat, peace fell over the sea like a blanket. We sat in silence, soaked and breathless. He looked at each of us, not in rebuke, but in quiet affection. His robe clung to his shoulders, his hair wet, his eyes deep with something eternal. In that stillness, I felt my heart whisper, "Who is this man, that even the sea obeys him?" And deep within, I heard an answer not from earth, the Son of the living God. It was early morning when he called 3 of them, Peter, James, and John, to climb a mountain. I watched them disappear into the mist. The rest of us waited below, preparing food and tending to the people. The day passed slowly. But when they returned, their faces glowed as if they had seen the sunrise from inside heaven. Peter could hardly speak, trembling as he said, "We saw his face shine like the sun. His clothes became white as light. And Moses and Elijah were with him." I listened, my heart pounding. Could it be? The prophets, alive and speaking with him? When Jesus looked at us that evening, something in his eyes had changed. It was as though he carried a secret, a burden and a glory entwined. Later, while the others slept, I sat by the fire, watching him pray alone. The stars shimmered above. His whisper drifted on the wind, words I could not catch, but I felt their weight. He was preparing for something. I could feel it deep in my bones. In Bethany again, at the house of Simon the leper, I saw him reclining at table. Laughter filled the room, but I felt something heavy in the air, an ending drawing near. I took a jar of pure nard, my most precious treasure, and broke it open. The perfume spilled over his head and feet. The scent filled the house, thick and sweet. The others protested. Why waste this? It could have been sold and given to the poor. But he turned to them and said, "Leave her alone. She has anointed my body beforehand for burial." The words struck like thunder. My hands trembled as I wiped his feet with my hair. A lump rose in my throat, but he looked at me with such love that peace settled over me like a veil. I didn't fully understand, but my heart knew this act mattered, that love was preparing love for sacrifice. The night of betrayal began quietly. We gathered in the upper room. The air was heavy with something unspoken. He washed their feet, the master kneeling like a servant. When he came to Judas, I saw his hands tremble. "This night," Jesus said softly, "one of you will betray me." The words chilled the room. I looked at each of them, faces pale, eyes darting. Judas left soon after. The door shut behind him, and the night outside seemed darker than before. We sang a hymn together, but my voice cracked. I wanted to believe it was just a warning, a test. But deep down, I knew the hour had come. When we left that room, the wind had turned cold. We followed him to the garden, Gethsemane, they called it. The olive trees stood like silent sentinels under the moonlight. He told the men, "Pray that you may not fall into temptation." Then he walked deeper into the grove. I stayed at a distance, hidden in the shadows, watching. He fell to the ground, face pressed to the earth. I could hear his voice breaking, "Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." His agony pierced me. Sweat fell from his brow like drops of blood. Then came the torches. The soldiers. Judas leading them with a kiss. My heart shattered. I wanted to run, to scream, to fight, but I froze, watching the lamb surrender without struggle. They bound him and led him away. I sank to my knees among the olive leaves, my tears mingling with the dust where he had prayed. They dragged him through the streets before dawn, bound, beaten, silent. I followed from afar, my veil pulled low, heart pounding with every lash, every insult. At the high priest's courtyard, I stood in the shadows. Peter was there too, until the rooster crowed, and his denial echoed like thunder. I wept for him as much as for my Lord. They mocked him, crowned him with thorns, and struck his face. The crowd that once shouted Hosanna now screamed Crucify. I pressed against the wall, shaking, powerless. The sky felt heavy, as if creation itself held its breath. I wanted to rush forward, to throw myself before him, to take even one blow in his place. But the soldiers pushed us back to by morning. They led him away, carrying the cross. We followed him through the winding streets until the hill rose before us as Golgotha. The hammer's sound still haunts me. Each strike echoed through the earth, through my bones, through heaven itself. They lifted the cross. His body hung between earth and sky, between man and God. Blood streaked down the wood like a crimson river. I stood beside his mother. She leaned against me, her face pale with pain too deep for words. John stood near us, trembling. He looked down at us and said, "Woman, behold your son." Then to John, "Behold your mother." Even in agony, he was giving love. The sky darkened. The earth shook. He cried out, "It is finished." And the world went silent. I fell to my knees. The wind carried the scent of myrrh and death, had lost everything, yet somewhere deep within, a whisper remained, "Love never dies." After they took him down from the cross, we followed Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus to the tomb. The stone was heavy, the air thick with grief and the scent of burial spices, wrapped his body in linen. My hands trembled as I touched his hair one last time. His skin was cold, the warmth that once healed the world now still. The soldiers rolled the stone across the entrance. The sound echoed like finality. We stood there long after the sun went down. No words, no tears left. Just silence. When we returned home, the streets of Jerusalem felt empty. Even the stars seemed dim. That night, I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, not crowned with thorns, but smiling as he had when he called me Mary. I whispered into the darkness, if I could only see you once more. Before dawn on the third day, I went to the tomb with the others, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and Salome. The sky was gray, the air cool and still. We carried spices, planning to anoint his body properly. My heart was heavy, but I had to go. Love wouldn't let me stay away. When we reached the place, the stone was rolled away. The tomb stood open. Fear seized me. I ran to look inside. It was empty. The linen cloths lay folded neatly. I screamed for the others, thinking someone had taken him. My knees gave way. I fell to the ground, weeping. Everything felt lost again. I turned away from the tomb, blinded by tears, and saw a man standing there. He asked, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom were you seeking?" I thought he was the gardener. "Sir," I cried, "if you've taken him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will bring him back." Then he said one word. "My name, Mary." That voice, broke through every sorrow, every shadow. I looked up. It was him. Alive. "Rabboni!" I cried, "Teacher!" I rushed forward, wanting to hold him, to never let him go. But he said softly, "Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. But go to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." My heart was burning. My tears turned to laughter. I ran from that garden, my feet barely touching the ground. The sun rose behind me, spilling gold over Jerusalem. Was no longer the woman possessed by demons, no longer the sinner whispered about in the streets. I was the witness, the first to see him alive. I found Peter and John. My voice shook as I tried to speak. "I have seen the Lord," I said. They stared in disbelief. Peter ran out, John followed. They had to see for themselves. When they returned, their faces were pale, hope dawning like sunrise after storm, but I knew what I had seen. I knew what I had heard. His voice still echoed inside me, "Go and tell them." For the rest of that day, I walked the streets whispering to anyone who would listen, "He's alive." Some mocked. Some stared. But I didn't care. The fire in me burned too bright to hide. Days later, we met him again, by the Sea of Galilee. The same waters where he had once called fishermen now reflected his risen glory. He stood on the shore, calling, "Children, have you any fish?" They didn't recognize him at first. But when he broke the bread and gave thanks, we knew it was him. He laughed again, that same laughter that could make a heart forget its sorrow. We ate together by the fire. He spoke softly, reminding Peter of love's power to restore. "Feed my sheep," he said. I sat silently, my eyes full. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and smoke. The same place where he found me lost, now became the place he left me found. He led us to a hill near Bethany. The wind stirred our garments as he lifted his hands to bless us. "Go into all the world," he said, "and tell the good news." Then light surrounded him, brighter than the sun. And he rose. Slowly, steadily, into the sky until clouds hid him from our sight. We fell to our knees, hearts bursting with awe and joy. I looked up until my eyes blurred, whispering through my tears, "You found me in the darkness, and you left me with light." After he ascended, we gathered in the upper room. Fear had once ruled that place, now it throbbed with expectancy. When the wind rushed through the windows and tongues of fire rested on us, I felt it, that same presence that once spoke my name at the tomb. I wept again, not in sorrow, but in joy unspeakable. The Spirit filled me. The woman who once hid in shadows now spoke with boldness. Everywhere I went, I told my story. Of how he found me. Of how he freed me. Of how he called me by name. And when people doubted, I simply said, I have seen the Lord. Now, as I sit by the same sea where he first looked at me, the waves whisper memories. The years have passed, yet I still feel his presence in the wind. I am no longer the woman the world pitied. I am the woman grace remembered. The one he called by name. Sometimes I wonder why he chose me, a broken soul, a sinner, a woman from Magdala, but I understand now. He wanted the world to know that no one is too lost to be found, no one too stained to be redeemed. If you ever doubt his love, remember my story. Because once, I was darkness and now, I am light. Once, I was lost and now, I am the first to proclaim I have seen the Lord. And that is the story of Mary Magdalene. The woman the world once called unclean. But heaven called chosen. She was broken, but he made her whole. She was forgotten, but he called her by name. And through her tears came the first testimony of resurrection. I have seen the Lord. If this story touched your heart today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. So more souls can hear these powerful stories of God's grace. Your support keeps this channel growing, and together, we'll keep bringing the untold stories of the Bible to life, one woman, one miracle, one act of faith at a time. Until next time, remember, when the world sees your past, God sees your purpose.